In September 2016, 40,000 Americans woke up and found out their college was closed. No warning, no transition plan, no path forward. They had federal student loans they could not discharge, credits that other schools would not accept, years of work toward a degree that was now worthless on paper and in practice. The executives who ran ITT Technical Institute had known the school was collapsing for months. They said nothing to the students. They collected their salaries until the last day. Then they walked away. This is the story of how ITT Tech collected $11 billion in federal financial aid, defrauded hundreds of thousands of students over 50 years, and left an entire generation holding debt for a degree that never existed. ITT Technical Institute was founded in 1969 in Indianapolis, Indiana. For its first 2 decades, it operated as a legitimate technical school. Electronics, computer repair, drafting, engineering technology, practical skills for working-class Americans who could not afford a 4-year university but wanted something better than a high school diploma. By the 1980s, ITT had expanded to dozens of campuses across the country. It was filling a genuine gap. Not everyone can afford 4 years away from work and income. ITT offered something specific and achievable, priced for ordinary people trying to build something better for themselves. That version of ITT was real. It worked for many students. Then in 1994, a private equity firm acquired ITT Educational Services and took the company public on the New York Stock Exchange. The business model changed overnight. The goal was no longer to train students for careers. The goal was to maximize the amount of federal financial aid the company could collect per enrolled student. Every person who signed an enrollment form brought in federal Pell Grants and federally guaranteed student loans. The more students enrolled, the more federal money flowed in. The higher the enrollment numbers, the higher the stock price, and the larger the executive bonuses. Student outcomes became irrelevant. Whether graduates could actually find jobs in their field of study became a question nobody in senior management wanted to answer honestly. Enrollment numbers were everything, and enrollment numbers depended entirely on the recruiters. Here's how the machine actually worked. ITT employed hundreds of aggressive recruiters across 130 campuses. Recruiter compensation was tied directly to how many students they signed up each month. Miss your targets and your job was at risk. Hit them and you earned bonuses. Recruiters were trained to target specific populations: veterans with GI Bill education benefits, single parents on government assistance, people who had lost jobs in the 2008 recession and were desperate to retrain, people in financial difficulty who believed a credential would change their circumstances. The pitch was always the same: ITT will change your life. ITT graduates earn significantly more than high school graduates. The degree will pay for itself within 2 years of graduation. Almost none of it was true. In 2010, a government investigation sent undercover applicants to 15 for-profit colleges, including ITT. Every single one engaged in deceptive practices. Recruiters encouraged applicants to falsify financial aid applications. They cited employer relationships that did not exist. They made salary projections that bore no connection to what graduates were actually earning. Students signed the enrollment forms. The federal money transferred to ITT immediately. The recruiters collected their bonuses, and the students began accumulating debt toward a credential that many of them would never be able to use the way they had been promised. Between 2000 and 2016, ITT collected more than $11 billion in federal financial aid. In some years, more than 80% of its total revenue came directly from federal student loans and Pell Grants, taxpayer money specifically designated to help working-class Americans access education. ITT spent a fraction of that money actually educating students. The rest funded executive compensation, shareholder returns, and the enrollment marketing operation that kept numbers high enough to keep the government money flowing. The students were not customers being educated. The students were the mechanism through which federal money was extracted. Their loan capacity was the product being sold. By 2012, the situation could no longer be contained. State attorneys general in multiple states opened investigations. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau filed suit for predatory lending. The Securities and Exchange Commission launched an inquiry into whether executives had misled investors about the company's financial condition. Inside ITT, senior leadership knew accreditation was at serious risk. Without accreditation, ITT could not access federal financial aid. Without federal financial aid, the entire business collapsed. There was nothing underneath it. They said nothing publicly. New students continued enrolling. Recruiters continued making promises. Students continued signing federal loan documents. In August 2016, the Department of Education restricted ITT's access to federal student aid. ITT had two options: find alternative private funding, or close. On September 6, 2016, ITT Technical Institute announced the permanent closure of all 130 campuses, effective immediately. 40,000 students found out from a press release. Many were mid-semester, some were weeks from finishing their degrees. Credits earned at ITT were largely non-transferable. Accredited institutions would not recognize them. Years of coursework simply ceased to have any value. The loan debt did not cease to have value. A student who had borrowed $40,000 to attend ITT still owed the federal government $40,000 plus interest. The school was gone. The degree was gone. The debt was permanent. Under American law, student loan debt cannot be eliminated through personal bankruptcy. It follows you indefinitely. It can be garnished from wages. It can be withheld from tax refunds. It grows. Kevin Modney served as ITT's chief executive from 2007 until the closure. During his final 2 years, as federal investigations were intensifying and the company's financial position was collapsing, Modney received total compensation exceeding $6 million. The students enrolling during those same years received debt they could not discharge and degrees they could not use. The Securities and Exchange Commission later charged Modney with fraud for misleading investors. He settled without admitting wrongdoing. He kept most of the money. The Department of Education eventually moved to discharge the federal student loans of ITT students who had been defrauded, but only after years of legal battles and the Biden administration's Borrower Defense Program in 2022, 6 full years after the closure. 6 years of debt, 6 years of damaged credit reports, 6 years of wage garnishments for borrowers who could not navigate the relief process. And some students received no relief at all. ITT Technical Institute collected $11 billion from American taxpayers to fund an institution whose primary purpose was collecting that money rather than educating the people it enrolled. It targeted veterans, single parents, and recession victims with the most aggressive sales operation in the American education industry. It knew it was failing years before it announced closure, and it continued enrolling new students throughout. Executives collected millions while it was happening. They faced civil charges, they paid settlements, they did not go to prison. 40,000 people woke up one morning in September 2016 and discovered their college no longer existed. Some of them are still paying for it today. If this story made you angry, subscribe to Buried Brands. A new story every 10 days. Next video coming August 1st.